What is going on, beautiful people? UFC 319 is just around the corner. We are about to give you my full card breakdown, predictions, bets, and more. But before I do, don't forget, if you want to sign up and unlock my premium bets, plays, and more, you can find the link in the description of this video. Back to the breakdown. Guys, before we get into it, the reason this is out so late is because Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus Du Plessis was already an absolute cooking card, but I heard rumblings in the mix that there were going to be fights added, and I am not disappointed. We have a 15-fight card breakdown. That's right, 15 fights, man. 15 fights is absolute mayhem. I'm looking forward to this absolute no end, and I hope you guys are as well. We're going to bust through from the bottom of the card all the way to the top, and there will be timestamps for this video, so don't be getting upset about no timestamps. They will be in there, so you can check. They'll be in a pinned comment, as well as you can just skip through. It should be in chapters as well. Let's break into it. First fight of the night is going to be Alibi Idris and Joseph Morales. If you guys haven't been keeping up with The Ultimate Fighter, this is the flyweight finale for The Ultimate Fighter season. Chael Sonnen versus Daniel Cormier, and this is going to be a banger, man. If you don't know Joseph Morales, this is actually a second stint inside the UFC. He got cut from the UFC on a 2-fight losing skid, has fought his way back, and has looked like a clear veteran inside of this season of The Ultimate Fighter so far. Alibi Idris, on the other hand, not a fighter that you want to mess with. This guy is 10-0. He's from Kazakhstan. He fights with a well-rounded style, always looking for the finish. And he gives me glimpses of Merab Dvalishvili, just all effort, all gas, always hunting for the finish. He screams, remember my name, remember Alibi at Dana White. And I love everything that he's doing. And I think that he wins this matchup here. I haven't seen betting odds here, so I don't know if we're going to get to the betting window on this fight or not. But Alibi Idris is going to be my pick. And as far as excitement for this one, I think you guys are in for an absolute treat. I do believe that it primarily takes place within the grappling, as both of these fighters do trust their grappling. So I expect this fight to end by submission, with Alibi Idris getting his hand raised and becoming the Ultimate Fighting Champion. The next fight is going to be Rodrigo Cesado and Denil Donchenko. Both of these guys are interesting characters. If you guys haven't been watching The Ultimate Fighter, this is the Ultimate Fighter finale for the welterweight division. Rodrigo Cesado has been going through this division, through this competition, I should say. My apologies for that stutter there. Through this competition, very loud and proud. He's an outspoken individual, born by way of Brazil, but living in Canada, and he represents Brazil and Canada both proudly. And he comes in here with a grappling heavy style. He is a bit small for 170 pounds. He's going to be the shorter fighter in every single matchup he ever has if he makes his way into the UFC here. Denil Donchenko, on the other side here, an active striker. He gets after it. He's not afraid to get into the fire. Last fight, he was able to get some elbows off and, draw a lot of blood from his opponent there, and then finally win in and close the kill. I think Denil Donchenko is a fun fighter, and I do expect him to be able to stop enough of the takedowns here from Rodrigo and then get his hand raised by ultimately being the more damaging fighter here against Rodrigo Cesado. As far as betting goes, again, I haven't got odds for this matchup just yet, but I'm going to lean towards Denil being the favorite in this matchup, and he's going to be my pick as well. Next fight of the night, third fight on this card, we have Karini Silva taking on Diona Babosa in what is actually a rematch. If you guys don't know, these guys did fight in the past where Diona Babosa was able to get a 1-up over on Karini Silva and win by decision. However, I will say this, that I think that Diona Babosa was a more complete fighter at the time of them fighting, whereas I think Karini Silva has rounded out her game more since then. And coming off of a loss to Viviane Rouso, I do actually think that we're going to see a more well-rounded approach from her here and a more emphasis on get-up game, on her ability to stand up from being taken down. So I'm going to go Karini Silva. I think she makes it 1-1 here against Diona Babosa, and I think she wins this fight by decision. Then we have Sultan Rouso taking on Brian Battle the Butcher. And I'm going to just take a little beat on this one. We're going to slow it down, and I'm going to give you a more in-depth take because I have a lot of insight into both of these fighters. Sultan Rouso is an absolute fight finisher. This guy is action personified. You do not want to miss him. He goes out there, he's always hunting for a finish. In round one, he is as dangerous as anybody. He's got strong, straight shots down the middle, pretty tall individual. He doesn't have the longest reach listed, but he does manage to find the target with those straight shots, and his hands are very fast and powerful. He has come into the UFC and fought both at welterweight and middleweight, but I do believe at middleweight, his frame seems to fill out a little bit better, and that weight cut doesn't seem to be quite so impactful. On the other side, we have Bryan Battle, the Butcher, coming off the Ultimate Fighter himself. He has trimmed up inside of the UFC and more physically developed, shall we say, as we watch him in real time. Every time he turns up on the scale, he seems a little bit more muscular, a little bit more fine-tuned, and his skill set is catching up along with it. At his heart, he is a pressure fighter. He wants to make you tired and overwhelm you. And for the most part, that has worked him well inside the UFC. He is coming off of a decision win, we shall say, over my boy Randy Rude Boy Brown, where he did miss weight, and it seems like the UFC is now forcing him to fight up at middleweight. I don't think it's going to be a big sized advantage. I think a lot of people are talking about how big Sultan Ruziboyev is and how Bryan Battle's actually going to be at a size disadvantage. I'll tell you this right now. I think that Bryan Battle's actually going to be the stronger individual in there. I think he's still going to be able to push a pace. And I think that we could see some of the success that Joaquin Buckley had be replicated here within the grappling from Bryan Battle. So I'm going to take Bryan Battle to win this fight, and I do believe he wins this fight by decision. I think that his pace and pressure is going to wilt Sultan Ruziboyev, but I don't think it's going to be to the point where he does give in. So give me Bryan Battle, the Butcher, to win this fight by decision. He's only a slight favorite, sitting at -175. Let's move on to the next. We have Edson Barbosa taking on Dricus, Battle of the Unks, 39 years old, almost 40 versus 37, halfway to 38 right there. This is a good matchup, good matchmaking by the UFC. Both of these guys sort of struggling to get their footing lately. Dricus coming off of that loss, and I will say no disrespect in this loss as well, because it was to the legend Joel Alvarez, who is a very bright prospect in this division. And on the Edson Barbosa side, we got that decision loss to Lerone Murphy, where honestly Lerone kind of beat this man from pillar to post. A year and 2 month layoff here for Edson Barbosa. I think it was probably needed. He's got a lot of miles on his body, and if he's coming back now and he thinks he's fit, healthy, and ready, then I like it for him. He's going to be the larger individual here, even though he is coming up from featherweight, because Edson Barbosa, was already cutting a lot of weight to get down to 55. So I expect him to look maxed out for this division, and he's probably known for a while that he was going to fight at 55. So don't expect him to come in here at any kind of disadvantage as far as the size aspect goes. He's fought the who's who of this division. He's done well for the most part. I like Edson Barbosa's durability. I like his body kicks that he has. They're always vicious and dangerous, just ask Dan Hooker. And Dricus here, I think, isn't exactly hitting his stride. So I'm going to take Edson Barbosa here. He is a slight favorite, -150 favorite here. I think the price is good, and I wouldn't say that he's parlay safe, but I do expect him to go out here and get it done over Dricus. Moving on to the next, we have Alexander Hernandez taking on Chase the Dream Hooper. And if you haven't seen my Slam of the Week video, what are you doing? Pause the video, go check that out right now. But if you have, you will know that Chase Hooper is leg one of Slam of the Week. I'm pretty confident in him getting it done here. And my confidence stems from this fight right here. If you go back and you look, Damon Jackson going out there and getting all the takedowns in the world against Alexander Hernandez. If Damon Jackson is able to get multiple takedowns on Alexander Hernandez, I expect Chase Hooper to do the same. The difference being that Chase Hooper's submission grappling is far more dangerous. I think he gets takedowns on Alexander Hernandez, and I think he catches him with something that Hernandez isn't accustomed to. It could be a footlock, it could be some weird submission, but I expect Chase Hooper to win this fight by submission. A lot of people are telling me that I'm overlooking Alexander Hernandez in here, and I will go back to a little bit of storytelling. Hernandez was actually a guy that I thought was a bright prospect at one point in time. And I was a fan of Hernandez, and he's consistently let me down. Even in his wins, he's underperformed, in my opinion. You go back and you look at his last outing here against Kurt Holloway. I think that decision could have easily gone the other way. So despite, being on a 2-fight win streak, I think that split decision here against Austin Hubbard, and then a unanimous decision here that I think probably should have been a split or even gone the other way. So I'm going to say that Chase Hooper goes out here, gets a submission victory, continues his 5-fight win streak. And how good is that, man? Moving up a division here, defeated Nick Fiore, nothing to rave about here, but submitting Jordan Levitt, a fantastic work, goes out there, submits Vyacheslav Borchev. At the same time, he was beaten on him as well. He even dropped Borchev at one point. Obviously, gets the legend Clay Guida out of there. And then that Jim Miller decision, while it wasn't amazing, you look at that strength of schedule, 4 months, 8 months, a little over a year. This guy's fighting every 4 or 5 months and going out there and getting it done for us. I like Chase Hooper. I think at, 26 years old as he's about to be coming into this fight here, I think he's coming into his prime here. Alexander Hernandez has never got his footing in the UFC, and I don't think he's going to get it in this matchup. Then we have Jessica Andrade taking on Lupita Godinz. Lupita Godinz, was a consideration for Slam of the Week as well. I think that in this matchup here, Jessica Andrade has showcased to us that she does struggle with grapplers. Lupita Godinz does fall within that category. She is a boxer and grappler. Her takedowns are good and they are consistent. Her control can be questioned. I will acknowledge that for sure. But I do think that Lupi goes out here, utilizes a grappling-heavy game plan, which we did see in her last outing, against Julia Plastri. She is willing to go takedown, takedown, takedown. And I think she might need it here against Jessica Andrade, but after the performance that we just saw from her, I think we can see it again here. So give me Lupita Godinz to go out here, take Jessica Andrade down, win this fight by either submission or decision. I think it's going to be takedown, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw Jessica Andrade retire at this point, going off on a 3-fight losing streak out of the UFC. Then we have, this is a matchup here, guys. If you haven't seen the Dana White's Contender Series, we did a live watch party for that one. Bison Susuk fought yesterday. He literally fought yesterday. Now he's coming into the UFC on Sunday. I think he was holding up the sign. It's 4 days' notice. This is a teammate of Khamzat Chimaev. He's from Chechnya, from Russia. He looks like, to me, looks like a very thin, athletic-looking Alexander Romanov. That when I look at this topology picture, that's who I'm seeing right there. But Bison Susuk is a demon. Okay, I hadn't done a bunch of tape study on this guy before, and I'm not going to sit here and gaslight you, but I watched his Dana White's Contender Series performance yesterday against Murtaza Talha, and I loved every single thing that I saw from this gentleman. The way that he conducts himself, his size, his physicality, he looks like his takedown defense is phenomenal. I think he goes out here and absolutely smokes Eric Nolan, and I haven't even done my research on him. I did a little bit of paper study right before I started recording this. But the reality is that Bison Susuk is UFC ready, in my opinion. I think he's going to come out here and beat the brakes off of just about anybody they put in front of him for the first 2 to 3 fights. So it doesn't matter what the odds are. I'll be betting on Bison Susuk, and I'll be sitting there with popcorn in hand, ready to absolutely froth and enjoy this man's career. He seems to want to get active. He's coming from that Khamzat Chimaev camp. He's young at 24 years old. I think the sky is the limit for this dude. I know that sometimes I get a little bit carried away with these prospects, but man, I am excited for the name Bison Susuk to be called out, and I think that he comes out here, and as his name suggests, the hunter, I think he gets the kill. So give me Bison Susuk to win this fight, round 1, knockout. Then we have Gerald Meerschaert, GM3, taking on Mikallen Oleksiejczuk. This is a matchup where I'm not confident in either side here. A lot of people are going to tell you Mikallen Oleksiejczuk, it's knockout. Obviously, it's very clear. A minus 230 is a bargain. The other side of the community is going to tell you plus 190 for Gerald Meerschaert in this spot. Are you crazy? Sign me up. I'll tell you right now, go with what your gut is telling you. Don't listen to me here in this specific matchup, because if it goes exactly how you want it to, which I think it's either going to go the way that people predict within Mikallen Oleksiejczuk getting an easy knockout here, or Gerald Meerschaert getting a you must have forgot submission. But either way, if you had that initial lean and you change your mind because of what I say or what somebody else says, you're going to feel like shit. So I'm going to say that Gerald Meerschaert does go out here and gets a submission. It might be hideous. It's low confidence, but, go with your gut, guys. And if you're already thinking potentially a GM3 play here, then, run with it. But if you're on the Mikallen Oleksiejczuk side, don't let me change your mind, specifically on this matchup. Then we have Bobby King Green taking on Diego Ferreira. This is my official underdog opportunity, guys, and that's a spoiler. I haven't released the video yet. So what? Sue me, sue me, guys. Bobby King Green is going to be the underdog opportunity. We Want Picks Premium members already know that. In this matchup here against Diego Ferreira, I think he's got the hand speed advantage. I think that his style is going to be able to avoid the one pot shot ability here of Diego Ferreira. You see a lot of Diego Ferreira's knockouts. They're coming not from punches and bunches, but, big one power shots. And I think that Bobby King Green, even at his advanced age, shall we say, at almost 39 years old here, his awareness doesn't seem to be terrible. His reaction time is still good. He's still fast. He's still sharp. It's just his chin that comes into question. And even when I say chin coming into question here, you do look at this matchup here against Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner is an absolute fucking demon. And this ref should be sued and put in front of a board of judges to see what his freaking punishment should be. He wanted to see Jalen Turner die in there, man. You go back and you watch that thing. He slumped Bobby King Green. Very obviously could have stopped that fight immediately and just let him beat on him senselessly. Very, very late stoppage there. Unfortunate for Bobby on that one. Then you see this fight here goes out against Jim Miller. this decision was also one where I think they could have stopped that. Bobby Green beat the shit out of Jim Miller, and I was on Jim Miller in that fight. That was a moment where I learned, hey, Bobby Green can beat on an unk if he has to. In this matchup here, obviously, Paddy Pimblett went out there, styled on him a little bit, and then Mauricio Raffi with the beautiful spinning wheel kick. These names, Jalen Turner, Paddy Pimblett, Mauricio Raffi, Islam Makhachev, the name Diego Ferreira beating Bobby Green doesn't cross my lips, and I don't think it's going to here. I'm going to take King Green. I think that he goes out there, uses the volume. If he gets a finish, I expect it to be round 2 late, round 3, due to attrition, due to landing 120 strikes on Diego Ferreira. But most likely, I see him winning this fight by unanimous decision. So give me King Green as the official underdog op to get it done. Then we have Tim Elliott taking on Kai Asakura. This is a matchup where everybody's, thinking that, Alejandro Pantoja got Kai Asakura down, took the back, submitted him. Maybe Tim Elliott can do the same. I don't fucking think so, man. Alejandro Pantoja is a goddamn demon. He turns the most of this division into a wimp in front of him with just his absolute cannibalistic stare down as he walks forward through your punches, relentless, time and time again. Kai Asakura wasn't intimidated by Pantoja, but he was outgunned with his war of attrition and his grappling pedigree. In this matchup here against Tim Elliott is not Alejandro Pantoja, and he's not going to look like Alejandro Pantoja in here. And this is going to look like the majority of Kai Asakura's fights, where he hits him with some absolute nasty shit and crumples him. Whether it's a knee to the body or chest or head, it could be a knee, could be a hook, could be anything. Kai Asakura is an incredible athlete, a great specimen. At almost 32 years old, I think he's going to be absolutely peaking. The way that he's spoken and conducted himself leading into this matchup leads me to believe that he has gone back and tried to patch those holes within the grappling as well. Tim Elliott coming off of a tremendous layoff, almost 39 years old, inside of the flyweight division. Give me Kai Asakura to win this fight inside the distance. Then we have Jared the Killer Griddler taking on Michael Venom Page. And guys, I'm going to stop you right here. This is a bias pick, okay? This is a bias pick, so if you want to say BetSam bias pick and you want to throw this one in the trash, that's okay. But I'm going to take Jared Cannonier, and I think that he wins this fight by left hook knockout. Little check left hook, in fact, as Michael Venom Page enters. I know that everybody's saying the MVP's entries are crazy. The way that he hops in and out of range is unparalleled. His little side-bladed stance where he just leaps in with a huge shot and all the rest of it. I don't know that the power is going to translate up here at 185, and I actually see zero benefit for him to come up to 185. And I imagine that for Jared Cannonier, this is almost a relief. And what I mean by that is he's not fighting this young, hungry stud that's got power and speed and grappling and everything else. You look at this guy's matchups here. You've seen him fighting Nasruddin Imavov, fucking Caio Bahayo. Then he fights Gregory Rodriguez. Gregory Rodriguez is a step down from both Caio Bahayo and Nasruddin Imavov, and he managed to get it done by knockout in that matchup. I imagine he could get it done here. I would love for this to be a 5-round matchup because I actually believe in 5 rounds, Jared Cannonier would figure out Michael Venom Page, and I would be supremely confident in that. But in this matchup here, I think that within 3 rounds, it is going to be a tough ask, but I'm going to take him to win by knockout. I think it's about 7 times your money, plus 600 for my American homies. It's a flyer bet. It's not high confidence, and that's where I'm going to go with this matchup here. If MVP wins by, decision of being a snake charmer and jumping in and out, landing a total of 20 strikes across 3 rounds, so be it. But I'm going to take Jared Cannonier. I'm going to take the Gorilla to go out there and do what nobody's been able to do inside the UFC and finish Michael Venom Page. Then we got my boy, CP, Carlos Pratas, the Nightmare. If you guys haven't seen Slam of the Week, he is leg 2 of Slam of the Week. I expect him to go out here and handle Jeff Neal, handle business here. This seems exactly like a matchup that Carlos Pratas would win. Somebody was saying, and I'm not here to name names, but somebody was saying Jeff Neal is not in the leagues of, Li Jinglang, all the rest. I fucking absolutely think he's exactly like a Li Jinglang. He's a guy that he hits hard, he goes in there, he's durable, and he can beat some guys with his boxing, right? Carlos Pratas, on the other hand, chews those guys up for breakfast. I think he uses his long, rangy style here, uses his reach, chews up Jeff Neal on the entries, and finds a finish round 2 or round 3 via that absolute piston of a strength that he's got here. So I'm going to take Carlos Pratas to win this fight by knockout. Pretty confident in that. Then we have Lerone, the Miracle Murphy, taking on Aaron Pico. Guys, this is a matchup where the narrative coming into it is more steamrolled by Patchy Mix's performance than it is by Aaron Pico and who he is. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people thought that he was going to come in here and dominate inside the UFC. And now they're thinking Aaron Pico is also going to drop the ball. And I get it, you know. We've had a lot of people come into the UFC from these other promotions and not perform well, you know. This matchup does feel a little different. And what I mean by that is, you know, Aaron Pico is 28 years old. He's a junior. He's going to come in here young and hungry. Lerone Murphy is the older fighter here, you know, kind of getting on in age at 34 years. You know, you can't be called a prospect when you're 34 years old. He is an established contender in this division. Aaron Pico is diving into the deep end for sure. As you know, you guys might know, I'm a Lerone Murphy backer. I'm a Lerone Murphy supporter. I've had this guy as Slam of the Week in the channel. He hasn't let me down. Lerone Murphy is that guy, and I do believe that he's going to be a tough battle test for anybody. The one part of the training that I saw from Aaron Pico, both in his tape and in his training, this dude has a vicious left hook to the body. And I think that if he lands that on Lerone Murphy, he seriously could drop him with that. That is a shot that does concern me more than the grappling. Aaron Pico's left hand to the body, I think, could absolutely drop Lerone Murphy. If you see Lerone Murphy, he is always very defensively responsible with his hands. They're always up by his head and blocking headshots and kicks and whatnot. That body is a little bit open, and I could see Aaron Pico having success there. That being said, I'm still going to take the underdog, man. I'm going Lerone Murphy. I got to back my boy in the spot. You know, I haven't seen Aaron Pico defeat UFC level competition, so I'm going to go Lerone Murphy. I think that he can withstand the early storm of Aaron Pico and win this fight by either split or unanimous decision. So give me Lerone Murphy, the miracle, to win this fight by a decision. Let's move on to the main event. We have Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. And guys, this fight might not turn out to be what everybody wants it to, right? You can't predict how these things are going to break down. But on paper, this seems like one of the most fun fights that you could ever put together, especially in the middleweight division. Dricus Du Plessis, being who he is, a larger-than-life character, you know, he listens to that old-school rock and roll, comes out here against Khamzat Chimaev, you know, heavily religious man, the legend that is Boers. I think that Khamzat Chimaev's wrestling is the big X factor here. Is he going to be able to do what he did to everybody else, to Dricus Du Plessis? I'm going to lean towards yes. You know, the way that he was able to handle Kamaru Usman within the grappling, you know, I'm not talking about the striking, but within the grappling, he went out there and he was ragdolling Kamaru Usman. You know, that first round, he was doing all kinds of horrendous work to Kamaru Usman. Now, he did stay safe and turned it into a competitive fight. Make no mistake about it. But what I'm saying is that I don't see Dricus Du Plessis being as good as a Kamaru Usman within the grappling world, and I think he's going to make a mistake. I think he's going to try and get up too fast, potentially get his neck snatched, potentially get submitted in some other way. But I think Khamzat Chimaev wins this fight by submission within 2 rounds, and if he's there on the feet, I don't think he's going to look lost as well. Give me the Khamzat Chimaev prophecy. Listen, guys, I didn't shave my head and get rid of the mustache for no reason. It's Team Khamzat. It was always Team Khamzat. Khamzat Chimaev bores to get it done. That's how we do. Guys, that is the breakdown. And if you want to unlock my bets, picks, round line leans, and more, and you want to unlock Angelo's picks, Jacob's bets, Adam's articles, you know what to do. Sign up to We Want Picks. The link is in the description of this video. WeWantPicks.com/BetSam for all the bets, many other tools. Code BetSam for 10% off. It's only $10 a month. What are you waiting for? I'll see you all at the cash counter.